I'm Matt Moore, your co-host based up here in Brisbane, and joining me for each and every episode is my good mate based down in Melbourne in Ben Carbonaro. G'day, Benny. How are you, mates?
Very well, thanks, Matthew Moore. Very excited for things going forward. Unfortunately, we don't have as much freedom as you do up in Queensland.
It's been fantastic, and I just did a podcast with a mate of mine about an hour ago, and you were topic of conversation there for a bit of it. And I said, look, we're fortunate enough to get back on track here in Queensland, but mate, I can't wait till the borders are open between Queensland and Victoria, and I'll be on the first flight down and look forward to having a beer with you and the members at Flemington. I think we haven't seen each other physically for about probably 7 months now. I think the last time we caught up was members at Flemington. But how we met was through the VRC members page. We're both obviously proud members of the Victorian Racing Club, and I just said off air that it's almost 12 months of the day since we caught up at Spring Previews Day, mate, and I'm very lucky to call you mate and very honoured to call you a mate. And we've got a lot of things in common, especially horse racing and sports. So obviously great to bring this podcast series and YouTube series out online. And obviously you'll be joining me each and every week. We're pretty well connected with some big names in horse racing and sports.
We are extremely excited to be doing this, and this is going to be the perfect complement to 3 Feet Radio and Netball, one that I've done for many years now. But I've just reformatted that and doing that with my co-host Luke Herbert in New Zealand. Netball is another big passion of mine, and I'm sure through those podcasts I've been doing, you've been learning a lot as well.
I have, mate. Yeah, it's been very enjoyable to watch that. Now, obviously, quick question for you, Benny. Now, you're obviously based in Melbourne, and I've spent I've spent 4 of the last 6 years in Melbourne. I've been back in Brisbane now about 6 months, and I couldn't imagine a winter without AFL, rugby union, rugby league, no sport in Melbourne. What's the persona like in Melbourne? We've been pretty fortunate. We've got the AFL up here in Brisbane in the grand finals about a month away. We've got the Super Netball here, the Melbourne Storm based on the Sunshine Coast. How's it been in Melbourne, mate, during this lockdown?
I tell you what, it's been weird. Like being able to watch the races of a Saturday and punt of a Saturday is good.
Now, I just wanted to introduce ourselves. I think it's very important this episode that we just talk about or talk amongst you and I, and just get viewers and listeners sort of familiarised with who we are and what we tend to bring to the table. Now, you and I are from a very similar background, mate. As I said, both love horse racing, both love sport. I know a little bit about you, but for our listeners out there, mate, so tell me, you're obviously involved, or you were involved with the AFL. You're on JobKeeper at the moment, but your AFL circles and your horse racing circles, mate, tell us how you got into it and where you're at today.
I reckon I'm sort of different in the fact that I come from a family that's got no horse racing involvement at all. Yep. My dad used to go a lot when he was younger and stuff like that, but he hasn't. He takes interest on and off. He asks me for all the information now. I used to just be a person who would go during the spring carnival.
Yep.
But then one thing led to another, and through an ex-girlfriend of mine who I'm still friends with now, and her parents as well, because they're racing club members like me, so I still see them and say good day to them and talk to them on social media. Her father was a Flemington member.
Yep.
And I used to go on his guest card, and then one thing led to another. I bought my first membership, which was Moonee Valley. And I was also lucky enough to have worked at Moonee Valley over a Cox Plate Carnival back in 2014 when Adelaide won, which was amazing.
Yep.
And just to see how much what goes on, the planning involved into such a big race day. Unless you're on that side, you don't know. There is so much planning involved. It's ridiculous. And then, like I said, one thing led to another. Bought a racing club membership with Moonee Valley, then got Caulfield, then got Flemington, and then I think the fact that I just love to meet people and I love to network well, and I have a genuine passion for the industry, sort of helped me to get that job at Moonee Valley. I was working as a media and communications assistant, and I got thrown in the deep end. I edited On Track, the members magazine, for 2 editions. I couldn't believe it. I was having the time of my life. I thought, I've got very little experience in racing media, and I'm doing this. Why did they throw me in the deep end for? I seriously had to pinch myself every time I walked through the gates at Moonee Valley. I seriously did. It was amazing.
I love Flemington. I'm like you, mate. I signed up to the VRC 2 years ago and then signed up to Moonee Valley and the MRC Melbourne Racing Club last year.
Yeah, but I've got Caulfield too. Actually, just down the road from me.
Yeah, I love Flemington as a track. That new member stand at Flemington, if you haven't been there, do everything you can to get a guest membership or a membership.
Oh, mate, the rooftop
yeah, the rooftop, mate. The furlong bar for me, I think, is the best one because that's where you get your genuine punters and It's great. I mean, we spent.
That's where we usually are.
Yeah, I think you and I spent Stakes Day last year together in the Furlong Bar, and it was great. I was there this year for the last race before lockdown in late February, and that's a great bar, Furlong Bar on level 2. That's where the genuine punter goes. You watch the Sydney races, the Yahoo and carrying on when your horse gets over the line in Sydney or Brisbane, Adelaide's fantastic. You've got the full members bar downstairs, which is very old school, and I do like that, Benny, where you actually get the best seat in the house over the mounting yard. You've got the Moon Bar across the road. You've got the dining area in level 2, the cocktail bar level 3. And on a clear day, when you're on that rooftop and you're overlooking the city and you can see down the full way down the 1,200 metres straight, that's one of the best views in Melbourne for me, and I reckon one of the best views in the world. So very humble and honoured to be a member. But I love seeing you at the races. You've got a lot of connections around the place. You've said obviously you've worked at Moonee Valley, but tell me about how you've gone the last 6 years, how you've got so many connections around the place. And obviously, your current Facebook profile is of you with Kieran Maher and Dave Eustace. You're the king of networking, my friend. Tell us how you do it.
Well, I sort of broke the mold a bit, Matty, in the fact that I'm autistic, and apparently we're not supposed to be social, but we are. But I'm an exception to the rule. Yeah, I think it just comes down to just not being afraid to approach anyone. I've got no fear of approaching anyone, but I think it's very important to build relationships with people. If you just keep asking for things, I mean, if you don't know, you don't ask. But you've got to try to build that relationship, and you've got to try and pick a time when you feel it's right to ask. And that photo with Kieran Maher and David Eustace, that was after away game 1. I was in the Mounting Yard Magic Millions Day this year. And Darren Tyndale, who you may know, the racing photographer.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. He said, Carbs, because my surname's Carbonara, so I get called Carbs a lot. He goes, can you take this in? And I go, what is it? He goes, it's the saddlecloth for away game. Take it into the winners bar.
Wow.
And into the winners bar, and I did, and I said, here you go. And then the American family who were behind away game, thank you so much for bringing it back. It means a lot. Would you like a photo? Do you want a champagne? I'm like, no worries. Thank you so much. But Magic Millions Day every year, I'm very lucky because I wear Magic Millions caps a lot and that sort of stuff. They genuinely appreciate my passion for just promoting their brand. It's kind of an influence arrangement, and I get an invite every year into the directors' lounge, and that's my only holiday every year is I go up to the Gold Coast for the week and have a great time.
Well, mate, I've got everything fingers crossed that you can get up here for the Gold Coast, because I'm going to be basing myself on the Gold Coast and Magic Millions this year. I was unfortunate I missed Magic Millions this year, but
mate, you don't know what you're missing out on. It's such a good week. I mean, I don't always go to all the events, but just to be up there, it's just the vibe. And the place to be every night usually is Moo Moo's.
Yeah,
because anyone's at Moo Moo's, owners, jockeys, trainers, everyone. Yeah, everyone.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I was down the Gold Coast last week for the Pink Ribbon Race Day.
Yeah, how was that? They do a good job with that.
Day, mate. We couldn't. It was the members were sold out. We couldn't get in there, but a fantastic day. I think outside of a main Metrop meeting, Moonee Valley, Caulfield, Flemington, Eagle Farm, Doomben. For me, one of the most enjoyable race days I've had. We were just in general admission, mate, and the vibe was fantastic. Obviously, everyone was there to raise funds for National Breast Cancer Foundation.
Credit to Brett Cook. Credit to Brett Cook and the committee there. Amazing work.
I was just about to say that it is take your hats off to Brett Cook. Obviously, down there for dual race day before the lockdown, and that was a great day as well. But Magic Millions next year, 2021. Can't wait to be a part of it. I'll be at both the race days. I want to obviously go to the yearling sales. I've spoken to you a couple of times about the yearling.
Mate, the sales, seriously.
Fantastic.
It's fantastic. And if you can wrangle your way onto the ringside dining tables there at the sales complex, and the best time to do that is the Saturday night after the race day. It is absolutely electric.
Yeah,
the atmosphere, even if you're just in public at the back in the bar there, on the Saturday night, it is electric. Everyone's obviously backed a few winners. They're in a good mood. All the big players are there. They've probably been wined and dined by various people who have got plenty of money that want to buy horses.
Yep.
They put their hand up probably when they shouldn't, but sometimes they do because they want to. And it just keeps on rolling. Like from there, Everyone goes to the casino, or they go to Moo Moo's, or they go wherever. There's just so many things to do in terms of hospitality on the Gold Coast. You never know where you're going to end up or who you get talking to.
Absolutely.
That is seriously one of the things of the whole Magic Millions week.
That's just the general race day. You don't know who you're going to talk to. I mean, you obviously
you don't.
You put me in contact with a lovely young lady by the name of Sky yesterday, who's a jockey out at Toowoomba.
Sky Bogan-Hoover, one of the better provincial jockeys in Queensland.
She's out with an injury at the moment, but had the pleasure of catching up with her yesterday, and she was the face of the Wheatwood Handicap. So and that, Benny, is one of the oldest provincial races in Queensland. I think the 128th running of that yesterday. Caught up with her. Had a quick chat with Larry Cassidy after he rode Magic Conqueror in the Toowoomba Cup, and like you said earlier, mate, you've just got to pick your times and your moments of when to talk to these guys and build up that rapport and that relationship. Well, I was just saying with my podcast before, you can, go up to people of all sorts of walk in life and famous, parts of, or famous people and say, can I have a selfie, can I have an autograph? And people get sick of it. But if you actually take the time to connect with these people on a normal level, content of the conversation with Larry Cassidy yesterday, Carbs, was, and I didn't know this until I spoke to Scott. It was my first time at Clifford Park yesterday, but across that back straight, there's a bit of a hill. And Sky was saying if you're not familiar with the track, you can win or lose the race in that sort of 1,400 to 800 metre range. And the Toowoomba horses obviously know that hill's there and the jocks prepare for it. And I said to Larry Cassidy, how was the track racing after race 7? He said, oh, yeah, fantastic. He said, you obviously want to be in the 4-5 alley, maybe 6. But he said, that hill is where you can win or lose races. So it's a good bit of insight there. And I just had a bit of a chat to him. And I've caught up with Kelly Schweiter, who's one of the leading trainers up here who trained Magic Conqueror yesterday. And then and
the Odyssey. He's got the Odyssey as well.
Yeah, well, that run yesterday in the Wheatwood, and that beat Alligator Blood up the road here. I'm 180 metres up the road from Demon Racecourse where I live. And that beat Alligator Blood last start. But he's a good trainer, Kelly Schweiter. He's very dry, which I do like him. We go from there. And as I said, mate, I've taken sort of a leap out of your book, and since moving back to Brisbane and since the tracks have been open, just try to connect with as many people as I can. Obviously, Michael Maxworthy from Sky lives just around the corner from me, and I catch up with Maxie at the track, and we bumped into each other along the river there at Hamilton here in Brisbane about 6 weeks ago, and just spoke about obviously Rothfire and horses in general and stuff like that. And was up in the broadcast box with Josh Fleming at the midweek meeting here at Eagle Farm, which was an absolute pleasure. And Flemo is one of the best callers going around. We're blessed to have some great callers in this industry. Carbs, obviously, Matty Hill, Darren Flindell.
Down here, yeah.
Yep. We've got obviously Rick McIntosh, Terry.
Yeah.
And then we go over to Perth. Darren McCullough, is one of the best ones in WA. And then obviously we've got Matt Jackson across there, Anthony Manson, who I know you're good mates with. But for me, Josh Fleming is I was in the box with him, and to see him do his thing on Wednesday was just fantastic. He did the joint call with Anthony Collins yesterday at the Wheatwood Handicap, but hats off to these guys. We've got Flemo coming on throughout this series. So, but straight to the top, mate, we're very excited about what we've got in line here. We've been speaking to some pretty well-known people. Gemma Riley's agreed to come on for a chat, one of the up-and-coming trainers in Caulfield.
Tarkula Diva is her good horse.
And Labella Jude, who I know is her baby, and I've spoken to Gemma pretty much every day through social media, and she's a fantastic girl, Gem. Couple of people up here, like I said, Josh Fleming and Maxie will come on. Mercedes Howard, who's the voice of Radio Tab up here in Brisbane, she'll be coming on for a chat. We've just confirmed that Dan Stackhouse, I've just been chatting with Dan over the last day or two. He's keen to come on. So the future's bright here for the Chat Mate Season 1. It's onwards and upwards from here, and we're looking very forward. We've been speaking about this now for about 2 months, I reckon, mate. So finally we're down to it. We're going to get our teeth in it. We'll have a lot of fun along the way and hopefully engage a lot of viewers along the way, which is obviously what we aim to do.
And just, did you want me to keep talking about like my the other side of it, about sport too, and my involvement in my work?
Can do, mate, because I'll get onto it as well. So away you go.
Yeah, so I'm a journalism graduate at uni. Unfortunately, media is a very competitive thing, so I wouldn't say I've exactly done work professionally in media much. I did work in Netball Australia as a media assistant for a period in Moonee Valley, like I worked for before. But it's funny, things go around in circles. I'm currently obviously on JobKeeper, unfortunately, at the moment, but the training and property assistant for the umpires of the AFL. So basically, my role is pack training up, set training up. look after their uniforms at the start of the year when they get their new gear, look after the drinks, pump the footies, that kind of thing. People go, oh, you're nothing but a glorified water boy, but it certainly is a lot more than that.
Absolutely.
And I don't think people fully understand that until they're there. And it's also opened up so many doors for me too, like getting to know so many people in football. But I think the fact that I also have been involved in state league football with Werribee for as long as I have, I think nearly 15 years now in a match day role, mostly volunteer, but I think that probably got me over the line to get that job
Absolutely.
at the AFL. And I'm going to give a shout out here to Chris Donlan, one of the field umpires in the AFL, good mate of mine. He was the main architect into ensuring that there was someone with a disability working in the umpiring department. It may not have necessarily have been me, but he took it upon himself to take that concept to the AFL and say, look, I can see this as an opening or an opportunity. And then we had to go through an interview process, apply for a job. It wasn't like a mascot thing or a tokenistic thing or a quota thing. But I think the fact that I've had that involvement in state league footy as long as I had, helped to get me over the line.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, like I said, mate, I look at when we first met and we connected at Flemington that day. We hooked up on social media, and then I'm looking through and I'm thinking, this guy's just connected to everyone. So, like I said, mate, I'm glad that you and I are mates, and we chat quite often through social media and through text and that. But it's great to obviously catch up, and we're obviously looking forward to it. So, for those who are into my background,
rugby, aren't you?
I love sport from, I think, the day I was born. My earliest childhood, I remember I've got a photograph here somewhere. My 4th birthday, my mum made 2 cakes out of the world famous Woman Weekly cookbook. So one was an AFL football with the number 4 on the side, and the other one was actually the field with the goals and all that. But I grew up in Adelaide and was obviously used to go to state league games there. So obviously Werribee's a team in the VFL there. My background was being part of the cheer squad at the Central Districts Football Club in South Australia, the Bulldogs, who, as you know,
the Ponderosa.
They went on to win 1,000 premierships in about 10 years through the early 2000s. So that was great. So obviously loved AFL. Growing up, my childhood hero at the time is now one of my best mates, and I've known him for about 10 years in Warwick Kappa. So I'll get on to how I met Wiz in a bit. But
I'd love to know. I'm intrigued myself.
Yeah, no problem. Well, played AFL or Aussie rules as a kid through school, and then played cricket, and then took up rugby union at a late age, and then went over to the UK and played over there for a couple of teams, and spent a while over in the UK. Came back here, had 2 years down at the Gold, moved over from England to the Gold Coast, and played out at the Gold Coast for 2 years. And that's where I met Warwick, and Warwick and I were neighbours in the same complex in Surfers Paradise.
Right.
And the bromance kicked off from there, mate. So great guy to have. And then gave up playing in 2010, went into coaching, coached for the best part of 6 years, winning a few premierships along the way, both here in Queensland and Melbourne, coached at Harlequins in Melbourne, GPS up here in Brisbane, Western Suburbs Bulldogs in Brisbane, and my last year was at South Magpies. And then gone from there, mate. So giving it up. Horse racing's kind of in my blood. My mum was working for a butcher when I was growing up, and her boss was a trainer driver in trots racing in Adelaide. So I would always be at the trots every sort of Tuesday, Thursday in Adelaide at Gawler, and then we go to Globe Derby Park. And thoroughbred racing, my earliest memory of thoroughbred racing was 1988, the Melbourne Cup Empire Rose. But the very first Melbourne Cup that I bet on, and I shouldn't say this out loud because we want to gamble responsibly, 1991, Let's Elope. So I gave Mum
how's that?
Gave my mum my $5 pocket money that week, and she trotted off down to the tab and put $5 on the nose, and that's where it is, mate. And since moving back to Brizzy and just getting to know the people, I just said in my podcast this morning when I've done with mate Cow Carthew, my second one that I've done in his series, I wake up every morning and I'm grateful for the industry that we're involved in, and I love it and I breathe it and I live it, but I have a newfound love for it every day. And you probably see behind me, I've got the 2002 media puzzle print with the Winx memorabilia, a cast of 1,000 stubby callers behind me, Mackay Diva's book there, the cup there, I've got Black Caviar down there, I've got Mackay Diva on the wall. But pretty much, as soon as I get home from work, racing.com goes on, Sky Thoroughbreds goes on, Sky Racing goes on. Really taken an interest in the trials this year because you can find a lot of form through that. And it's great to go from there. But, yeah, very fortunate that I'm meeting some very good people up here in the industry, obviously on your lead, mate, and your advice was just get out there and be seen and shake hands and speak to people, and I haven't been afraid to do that, and I never have. But I don't ask for a lot. I just ask for a bit of a chat and a bit of a time and try and get to network with people, and it seems to be working quite well, and hence the reason for this show, mate. So, yeah, really good.
And I think the good thing about racing, you may know compared to a lot of other sports, is racing, it's a lot of genuine, real people, and there's a lot less, how do I say, media controls.
Correct.
Like there are media and comms managers, right?
Yep.
But people are a lot more approachable. Like you can go up and talk to a jockey and say good day. Yep. At the footy, you can't do that.
Yeah.
At the races, you can go up and approach. Like I remember. What was it? I remembered Magic Millions times. I've had beers with jockeys and trainers up there, and it's been great. Just having a word to them, having a chat, just saying good day, and then on their way. You know, like.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, I wouldn't say starstruck, but I was in awe. If you cast your memory back to last year, the day after the AFL Grand Final, we had that meeting at Caulfield on the Sunday, and I was lucky enough to be in the mounting yard for one of the races.
Yeah, Underwood Day?
Might have been Underwood Day. I think it might have been. And we got in the mounting yard for that race, and I had a photograph with Damien Oliver, who is one of my favourite jockeys. I had a photograph with Karen McAvoy, but I turned around and side by side was Gay Waterhouse talking to James Cummings, and literally they were 4 feet away from me, and I turned around and I had a quick chat with James Cummings and a quick chat with Gay Waterhouse, and both of those people are fantastic. I'd love to get them on here to interview them, but Gay was just one of the most amazing, beautiful women I've ever met. She's just so humble. She's not arrogant. I was trying to ask her a couple of questions about her. She wanted to know who I was. She wanted to know which horse I had in the race. She wanted to know who I knew and stuff like that. And it can be very easy to, when you're in that position of a trainer or a jockey, to say, oh, you know, it's all about me. But for Gay Waterhouse to actually stand there and give me a couple of minutes of her time and ask questions about myself, I thought, wow, I walked away from it thinking that is fantastic. And James Cummings, as he left that day, he walked straight past me in the members there at Caulfield, and he said, very nice to meet you, Matt. Hope you're back to winning. We'll catch up soon. So that exactly what you're saying there, mate. You wouldn't get that in cricket, and you wouldn't get that in AFL, and you definitely wouldn't get that in NRL or stuff like that. But the up close and the interaction that you can get with trainers, jockeys, media personalities is fantastic.
And you mentioned Gay. Gay, I remember when part of my role at Moonee Valley on Cox Plate Day in 2014 was to manage the second media room. So should we say, no disrespect to them, but the lesser journalists, the lesser publications or overseas media and photographers. And obviously, you know, they the staff, sometimes the staff, they wear the old stuffy gold jackets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do remember those.
Right? And we had a young bloke on the door that day. You know, and Gay wanted to come in, and the young bloke kept going, no, you can't. I said to him, mate, don't you know who that is?
Yeah.
And not just because of that, but she just wanted to come in for a minute to watch one of her horses running in Sydney. I remember it vividly. Winona Costin was riding it.
Yeah.
And she's looking up at the screen watching the race. As soon as the race is finished, out comes the mobile, rings her stable rep, talks to the stable rep, go, what do you think of how did it look and all that? Oh, tell Winona this, tell Winona that.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, when I've seen her, she may not always remember my name, but I bring up that story with her. And she's like, yeah, I remember now, Ben. Even some years later now, all these years later now, if I see her at the Gold Coast, which is usually the only time I get to see her because spring carnival time, access and getting mounting yard passes and stuff is very strict.
Absolutely.
But she says, yeah, I remember that. And she goes, how are you? How are you going?
Yeah.
And I feel like saying to her, if I see her at the Gold Coast, though, saying, what have you bought? Who have you bought with?
Yeah.
But she doesn't want to talk about that. Like you say, she wants to know about how I'm going.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, well, obviously her dad's a legend in the great late Tommy Smith. So, and obviously,
and the amount of trainer premierships he won in Sydney, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Consecutively.
Absolutely. Well, we're reaching out to Gay. I'd love to get from a trainer's perspective, Gay Waterhouse and Chris Waller would be the two that I would love to get. Obviously, Chris has got a stable up here on the Gold Coast. I was actually having a chat to one of your stable hands a couple of weeks ago over the road here at Eagle Farm, mate. And just, like I said, even the stable hands, mate, they're just really down-to-earth people. They love their job. They don't get paid the highest amount of money, but you'd almost trade that in to work for a stable like that. So, yeah, Gay Waterhouse, Chris Waller would be two guys I'd love to have a chat with. Kieran Maher and Dave Eustace I'd love to have a chat with as well. Jockey-wise, look, Damien Oliver and Craig Williams in Melbourne, obviously the two standouts. I think Jai McNeil is a star of the future, Cubs. I'm pretty sure you'll agree with that. He's an up-and-comer. We'd love to get him on. We've obviously got some big names in Sydney with James McDonald, Karen McAvoy, Glenn Boss, who's one of my all-time favourites. So, yeah, some big names there. And then obviously we've got some pretty good riders up here, the likes of Larry Cassidy, Ryan Maloney, these types. So
another good friend of mine, Jo Borg, she's an owner breeder. She spends her time between here in Victoria and also in Queensland. She's got property up at the Gold Coast. So I actually stayed at her place this year for the Magic Millions week while I was up there. She introduced me one day to Lloyd and Joe Bowditch, his stable jockey, and all the crew. And one thing led to another. And next thing I know, I'm being asked to line up early on big race days and run and get in the table.
Yeah, wow.
And the thrill for me, one of the biggest thrills was when Vidora won the Moya.
Yes.
I lined up so early, and I'm all over. I'm on everything, and people were started thinking I was an owner or something. Come on, I know you. You're that. I'm like, no, I'm just a friend of the stable. And they're like, no, you're more than that. But I'm like, no, I am.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, like Magic Millions time every year, I'm very lucky enough to. If I ask, they usually say yes. But if they're too busy, I'll say that's okay, and I go somewhere else.
Yep.
To invite me to the table at the sales at the Gold Coast every year, but just to have been involved with Vidora when she won the Moya, and then when she won the sprint, the snippets on Magic Millions Day, that was an absolute thrill as well.
Yeah.
And I seriously could not believe it. I was in Adelaide for the Adelaide Cup and the Magic Millions sales.
Yep.
Just after Vidora had won, there was a big banner at the sale yards at Morfordville. And and on there is all of us. And I'm walking, and I was totally oblivious until I was walking towards that direction. And I saw it. And I literally, it was like and the woman who was working there, one of the ladies was going, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Man," she's like, "Oh, it is you."
Yeah.
And I
fantastic.
I could not believe what I was seeing when I saw that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we kicked off the new season at Moonee Valley on Friday night, and it's funny
we did
the Moya, because the Moya was
Pippi.
a race, but geez, how good was Pippi? I was on Bella, and I didn't have the best of nights at Moonee Valley, but Pippi remains unbeaten first up, as was the case on Friday night. An explosive turn of foot, Cubs, in that short straight there at Moonee Valley, and a horse that's near and dear to you as well. And I've just messaged the trainer of this horse this morning to say congratulations, was Mystic Journey, who returned in the circle in the last year on Friday night, and just sent Adam Trinder a message this morning on social media to say congratulations. So I know you have a love affair with that horse, as does everyone, but it's great to see Mystic back in the winner's circle, and a very good win for Russian Camelot yesterday. Do you think Russian Camelot can win the Melbourne Cup, Ben? That's the big question we need to ask, because it's going to be very hard to beat at this stage.
I reckon seriously it has got a chance, but because we're going to have a lot more, I reckon, open Melbourne Cup field this year.
Absolutely, yeah. No,
even though the internationals are coming over, I think there's a lot that are probably like, because of COVID, because we can't have our full lot when of staff come over with the horse. They're not going to send anything. Yeah. But you look at Aidan O'Brien. Look how many Aidan O'Brien's bringing over.
It's going to. Damien Oliver actually said Russian Camelot is the best horse he thinks he's ever ridden. Now, that's pretty big for a guy who's won 3 Melbourne Cups on Media Puzzle, who's over me, Fiorente in 2013. And obviously we go back to Doremus in 97, I think he rode Doremus. 96. So, 96. Yeah, pretty big for a 95, I think it might have been. Pretty big for a guy to say that when he's ridden 3 Melbourne Cups. But obviously, the other horse that is a big contender for the Melbourne Cup this year is the winner of the Adelaide Cup in King of Leogron. So Danny O'Brien will have that cherry ripe to go into it. But Ollie's ridden both horses, and I'm very, very interested to see how he'll go in the Melbourne Cup this year. I think he's jumping on Vow and Declare. Is that right this year? Did I read that during the week?
You could be right. I'll have to double check that one. I think
he's on Vow and Declare because Williams is off on Surprise Baby. So, for me, we're getting closer to, and you and I agree on this, mate, but the Cox Plate Carnival, the Manukata on the Friday night and the Cox Plate on the Saturday, for me, is my favourite weekend of horse racing. And just going to Moonee Valley Race Club, the intimate settings of the members and how close you can get to the racing itself. And then they've got the runners come through the tunnel out past the members there. It's fantastic. But Derby Day and the Melbourne Cup week's like Christmas for adults and Christmas for punters. So that's the way I describe it. So I've got 5 questions which I'll ask you, Carbs, and I'll put my spin on it as well. But your earliest memory of thoroughbred racing?
I reckon just being in a sweep at primary school, or just a sweep at primary school. I can't remember what year, but just doing that.
Yeah, like 1988 Melbourne Cup for me, Empire Rose I think 9 or 10 years of age there, and fantastic. And then obviously, like I said, the next big one I remember was Let's Elope, because that's 91, and I remember watching that race at school. We stopped school that day to go down to the PR room to watch it on the big screen, and I was pretty happy with that. Your favourite all-time horse? Have you got one?
There's a few there, isn't there? I reckon there's a couple, but I will give one. Would have to be probably Black Caviar, and for the reason that it reinvigorated racing, because at the time racing was a lot of being criticised a lot, and it was great. It brought a lot of people who aren't usually racing people to the track.
Absolutely.
I remember at Moonee Valley. I remember one of its last starts, how packed the track was. It was crazy.
It was the same up here. I think it was 2012. It might have been. She raced up at Doomben up here, and chock-a-block that day. Couldn't get in there. I was lucky enough to get in there, but chock-a-block. And you're right, just brought the people to the track, and that's exactly what it's about. Black Caviar, definitely for me. In a sprinting term, I've got 2, Black Caviar from a sprinting term, but we can't go against the beautiful baby who won 3 Melbourne Cups in a row, Maccabi Diva. I love that horse. I've got the DVD here with the book, and I've got the print on the wall. For me, we see so much in racing from certain horses. Black Caviar went through undefeated in his career. Obviously, Winks, we know how good Winks was. We'll never see a horse win I don't think we'll ever see a horse win 2 Cox Plates in a row from now on. Winks won 4. Maccabi Diva won 3 Melbourne Cups, and very, very, the top weight in the last one in 205. Very hard to win a Melbourne Cup, but let alone 3 in a row. And the DVD I've got on is fantastic. And Bossy talks in this DVD at lengths about how good that horse was. But I don't think we'll ever see horses win back-to-back races ever again in a Caulfield Cup or a Cox Plate or a Melbourne Cup. They're just too hard to win, but to win multiple in a row is very hard. And I love those 2 horses. They're fantastic. Your favourite jockey? I know we're pretty well connected with a few jockeys, so we've got to be careful about how we go about this, but your favourite jockey?
I wouldn't say favourite, but I'd say the one that I probably have formed a pretty good relationship, and I know quite well, and it comes back to Fedora, would be Joe Bowditch.
And Joe Bowditch.
Just a very humble.
Joe Bowditch is actually doing a bit of writing for Gemma Riley at the moment.
Gemma, that's right. Yeah. No, just a very humble guy, and I think to see someone that had been toiling away around various states of Australia over the years to finally get a decent horse with Fedora, and he even got to ride it overseas. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then also, I quite like my female jockeys too. What about you? Have you got a favourite female jockey? I must say, Stephanie Thornton, since she's moved to Queensland, she's been killing it.
Steph Thornton's doing very well. I'm actually very good mates with a lady up here called Libby Harrison. Now, Libby's cousin is Tegan, who's having a great Tegan Harrison, who's having a brilliant purple patch up here. She's based on the Gold Coast. Libby's other cousin is Blair Gibson from racing.com, who does Gibbo's Brizzy Races, and he does there. So,
that's him. That's Gibbo from the Gold Coast Turf Club.
Yeah, that's Libby's cousin.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I caught up with Gibbo last week. He's a great man. Michelle Payne, Prince of Penzance 2015. I think Michelle Payne's story is very well, and I've got a lot of admiration for her. Big fan of Rachel King in Sydney. She does quite a good job.
Yeah.
Linda Meach, obviously, who's due to give birth later in January, and she'll be back. Jamie Carr's a standout. Now, my 2 favourite jockeys, obviously the man over the shoulder who rode the 2002 Melbourne Cup in Media Puzzle, Damien Oliver, one of my favourites. Look, love him or hate him, I absolutely love him. You see on my social media posts, Benny, when I put my boy with a love heart, and the people that don't know that, I'll give a quick spill about this, but Damien lost his brother Jason days before the 2002 Melbourne Cup in an accident over in WA. And Ollie flew over to the funeral the day after riding Media Puzzle in that 202 Melbourne Cup. And my current partner's friend is the daughter of the late great Wayne Wilson, who called that race in 2002. And I'll never forget, we look at the race and you go back and as he crosses the line, he says, "That's for Jason." And then Ollie points up to the sky, and if you lip read, he says, "My boy." So he kisses the heavens and that. But probably one of the most emotional races I've ever seen. I backed Damien that day and the world was with him. Australia was with him. Just couldn't have written a better script, Benny, in horse racing that. And then Glenn Boss is my other one. Obviously, as we said, rode the three Mackay Diva Melbourne Cups. Quick story about Bossy. I can't remember the year. It used to make you laugh. I was in Adelaide and I walked into Morfettville Racecourse and I was running late. This is about 30 minutes before the first. And I just see Bossy darting through the car park with his bag. And I was with a couple of mates and I said, "Hey, Bossy, you've got it. What's your best tip today? What do you like?" He said, "Boys, just follow me all day." And we jumped on him on the first. He was 3 wide, no cover as they ran the home turn at Morfettville, and he saluted the judge that day. And I think he went on to ride 4 or 5 winners. So he's a great man, Bossy. I love listening to some of his interviews. He rode a winner last year in a race in Sydney, and I'll never forget it. Was at I think it was at Randwick or Rose Hill, one of them. And he just come over on a flight the night before from Singapore, and he was in first class, and he was about 41 kegs this ride. And I can't remember who interviewed him from Channel 7 on the track, but they said, "Is there anyone else you want to give a shout out to?" And he said, "I'd like to give myself a shout out. Obviously made the weight and stuff like that." So a true character, Bossy, but obviously rode yes last year in the Everest. And had a great day, Sydney Cup way. We're talking about a away game before. He obviously rode a away game in the Sydney Cup along with Colette. And he got another winner that day as well. I was on him all day there. But they're my 2 favourite jockeys. So, if you look, you mount a case to every jockey, mate. You could have a decent shot and say, "Look, I love them all," but we go from there. Your favourite race, Benny, have you got a race that stands out?
Yeah, Cox Plate for sure. I just love the
Cox Plate or a certain race in particular?
I think just being able to say that I was there for all 4 Cox Plates, to say I was to be able to be there.
For Winks?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I was at the last.
Just to say that I was there.
I think my favourite race is the one over this shoulder we've spoken about, the 2002 Melbourne Cup.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Your most memorable moment in race, it doesn't have to be a race or at a racetrack or just anything to do with racing, but what's your most memorable moment about the sport of kings that we love so much?
Oh, there's a lot, but one of them would be being in the VIP side room at Club 23, which no longer exists at Crown.
Owned by the great Shane Warne.
Yes, and celebrating with the Winks crew. I think it might have been after the second Cox Plate, and that was through Dwayne and Amanda Dunn.
Yep.
There was a period there where I was their go-far. I was lining up early. They'd pay me to do it, get them a table on the big race days.
Yep.
And one thing led to another, and then next thing I know, I'm in the side room there. And talking to Debbie Capitas, and the Cox Plates are all laid out, the 2 laid on the table there, and and Hugh Bowman was in there, and I couldn't believe what was going on.
Oh, fantastic. I pretty hard to pinpoint a memorable moment. Like I said, I think we've touched on them. Obviously, Winks winning 4 Cox Plates, Black Caveat Royal Ascot. I think now we go back, we have a look at the race. Won by pretty much a bee's diaphragm, held on to win, but was actually injured in that race. And a phenomenal story. Obviously, 2002 Melbourne Cup for me and Mackay Davis 3. Prince of Penzance, obviously Michelle Payne, the first winner to win the big race. Look at it. Mate, there's so many. It's very, very hard to pinpoint, but fantastic. Mate, thanks very much for your time. We'll catch you again soon. Thanks.
I'll be gone. You were